Right? Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am your host, Tracy Stuckrath, and we are here live every single Wednesday talking about food and beverage. And I am excited to bring to you, I do this every week, this woman next to me. Her name is Kristen Manion Taylor, who is currently the Senior Vice President of in-flight services at Delta Airlines, my airline of choice. She leads a team of 25,000 plus flight attendants. Wow. As well as Delta's onboard global food and beverage experience and operation. She and her team work every day to define and deliver the Delta brand. And I am going to talk to her today about catering at 30,000 feet in the air. So, hello, Kristen.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to have the discussion today.
Yeah, and thank you, Gwen, for introducing us. Your book club friend and my friend from the events world. So we collide. So a couple of months ago, I reached out because a couple of months ago, Delta announced that you were refreshing the food and beverage experience on board for 2023. And I was really impressed by the fact that you were adding vegan options and plant-based vegan options, and you were adding espresso and all these other things. So can you talk about why you were doing that refresh? Is this something that you do every single year?
Yeah, so we are constantly refreshing our menus. I think now is a really unique point in time because we're coming out of COVID recovery. So it was just about this time last year that we actually started putting food back on board planes. We had boxed meals, but traditional tray service in our first class cabins, multi-step service in our international premium cabins was just starting to come back. It gave us an opportunity for us to look and see what are our customers asking for? What would they appreciate and enjoy? And what did we want to do in this opportunity, in this moment when we are starting to reintroduce food service? And our customer mix has changed through COVID. We've really seen a lot more what we call our high value leisure customers. These are folks who traditionally in our premium cabins, so our Delta One cabin or Delta Premium Select cabin or domestic first class, traditionally you would see a lot of corporate sales customers, traveling for business, consultants, bankers, manufacturing, et cetera. And those folks are still there, but that business isn't fully recovered. But our premium cabins are full. And so what's happening is customers have been cooped up for 3 years. They're ready to have experiences. They're ready to get traveling for their vacations. And so they're willing to invest a little bit more in premium cabins. So these high value leisure customers are getting on board and flying with us. And as as our population changes, we've asked them, what's of interest to you? What do you want? And that's what we heard was more plant-based options, more choice, more personalization, more small businesses, more diverse businesses. And so those are the types of products we're introducing.
Awesome. And I mean, I was impressed and I know I have a picture somewhere on my phone of the box meals during COVID, because I flew a couple of times during that time frame. And I did like the box meals, and I liked, this is coming from a person who talks about food and beverage and has food allergies. But the box meals, they had the prepackaged foods in there that had the full labels in them. And I really appreciated that because you also had introduced some things that were vegan, some things that were gluten-free in there. And the little blue bars that say no are just eggs, RX bars. You had mini RX bars in there. And so how do you decide what's going onto the first class premium seat food and beverage menus, as well as what's going into the back? And just touching on the allergens a little bit too, is that I know you removed peanut. You removed peanut. You had peanuts. You removed peanuts. You put peanuts back on, and you removed them again. So how do you make those decisions of what's going on the cart as well as in the premium section?
Yeah. So to the first part of your question, again, we really try to focus on customer demand and what are folks wanting. So what you'll tend to see from us when you get into onboard, the offering on board for, again, domestic first class or Delta One, you'll tend to see really comfort foods, recognizable foods. So your short ribs, your pastas for our vegetarian customers, chicken dishes that people really recognize. Where we're offering some more unique options that maybe folks hadn't seen before is in what we call pre-select. So prior to your travel, we'll send you an email and you have the opportunity to tell us what it is you would like to have on board. And our menu selection is much wider on pre-select. So that gives us indications about what people are interested in, and we learn from that, and that helps us in our next menu cycle, refresh and update that. But that really is a big part of what goes into what we select. The other thing is we have a whole menu development and design team building for the scale that we're at. 60 million meals a year, 160,000 a day that we produce. Wow. So for the scale we're producing, we have 130 kitchens around the world. So wow. That's a part of our scale as well. We have multiple catering providers who support us in those kitchens. And when you get into the air, your taste buds change. It's really interesting, but it kind of dulls your taste buds a bit. So we have to plan for a very different flavor profile and menu profile than what you'd be used to on the ground.
Well, and I was listening, and I'm going to post the video from the Wall Street Journal that you guys just had. They came to visit you in one of the kitchens. But one of the videos I was watching is that like lettuces don't do well, but cucumbers and tomatoes do because they maintain the moisture. But then you do have to add more salt. Is that right?
Well, traditionally, that's what airlines have done is they've added more salt to give it more of that flavor. What we've tried to do is expand out of that and leverage maybe more sauces, more relishes, more spices that'll make it more interesting. And again, give it that same flavor profile you're used to getting on the ground, which is a little bit more challenging once you get in the air.
So what is that? I mean, 60 million meals. And you said how many a day?
160,000 a day.
160,000 a day, which, my gosh, I mean, that's much bigger than my catering functions, in a convention center. So, and it was interesting because when we were chatting before, you're like, you wouldn't think that the airlines were in the food and beverage industry, but you are. I mean, you've got your sky clubs, you've got your flights, but the logistics of getting the food from that kitchen to the plane, and then the flight attendants, serving those. Can you share a little bit about what that whole process is? And because I want to talk too, if you can touch on as well, the farm to table aspect, because you are using a lot of local producers.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. There's the menu design and development, again, which, we just discussed and is super unique for the industry. So we have to be sure that we can purchase those ingredients at the scale that we need. So one of the ways to your last question around farm to table that we're addressing that is we're okay with having some variation. We're okay in Atlanta having a unique menu for Atlanta with locally sourced goods and providers and products on board, which is different than maybe what we're doing in San Francisco with, say, John and Vinny, who's one of our providers there. Here in Atlanta, it's the Mashama Bailey menu, acclaimed chef of the Gray. Here, we've got Union Square Hospitality Group that we leverage in New York, et cetera. So we do have people we partner with and local providers that help supplement, our menus. And we really feel like that's important on our sustainability efforts, supporting small businesses, supporting diverse suppliers, and giving our customers things that they recognize and, from their local towns. So that's the menu design and development part of it. Yeah. And then we have to source all that product. We have to get it into warehouses in real time. We then have to get it out to these 130 kitchens and make sure that in those kitchens, it has to go into carts and is provisioned appropriately so that then it gets on a truck, goes out to the aircraft, gets loaded into the galleys of those aircraft. And we have to make sure everything's there for the flight attendant, because you can't get 35,000 feet in the air and realize you don't have,
Right.
3 of the meals that you needed. So we have handoffs and checks that go on between our flight attendants and our caterers to make sure that we've got everything we need. Don't always, of course there are misses and we don't always get it right, but we work really hard to make sure there's no missing items on board. So just for an example, an A350, which is our biggest kind of international plane,
Okay,
that flies, to Europe or to the Pacific, it can take as many as 135 carts and carriers on that aircraft.
wow.
That have to be appropriately provisioned to make sure we're delivering the service we need for everybody on board.
So, all right, now that just are all of those 130 carts upstairs with us in the galleys that we see?
They
They're not
are.
like below and brought up in an elevator or anything like that.
They
Okay,
used to
wow.
be. There were certain aircraft
Really?
types like L1011s and others that
Mhm.
used to have those, and 747s that had
Yeah.
that type. But no, everything's on in the
Wow.
galleys at the same level that our customers are flying. So yeah.
And then, that just reminded me, because you thinking about planes and thinking about our baggage and the weights and things. Oh, well, we don't have enough cargo room for your bag. But in one of the videos I saw, it's everything is weighed,
Absolutely.
because those
Absolutely.
meals have to be a certain weight to meet the standard to get into that tray.
That is correct. And we need to know how much weight is on an aircraft, because that's how we plan for fuel, right? That's how we plan for how much fuel we need to have on board in order to, get from point A to point B and have buffers in place. So everything that's in the belly of the plane, cargo wise, we estimate passengers, baggage weight, but we know how much all of our, aircraft with the seats and the product and the galleys, how much all of that weighs. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of science and engineering that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that everything is a safe, clean operation.
And it's funny because the scale that you used in one of the videos is the one that I use at home too. So to weigh the food. Okay, so I want to talk about allergens a little bit too. And being a person who's been upgraded I usually don't buy my first class ticket. I wait to get upgraded. But that it's a little bit challenging, but I just want to talk through how you all work through this. There's a whole bunch of people with food allergies, I get. And that would be really hard, especially 30,000 feet, to make sure that's all planned out. But I lost my question, but how are the menus designed thinking about allergens first and foremost, the ones that are up, the premium ones. And then, and I shared with you this last week is that when I do get upgraded, I don't necessarily have the time to be able to pick my meal, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
because it is that last minute. And flight attendants, when they say, or if I have done it, they're like, "Oh, Tracy, it just says gluten-free. I don't know what I'm serving."
Mm-hmm.
So do you work through that, and how are you going to work through that in the future?
Yeah, no, great question. So I think, and yeah, sorry, you asked me earlier and I got off on a different tangent. So
no, you're good.
As it relates to the boxed meals, you're right. We learned a lot through that process in terms of having those packaged foods that did have a lot of that labeling on it. We got a lot of great feedback from our customers that this was something that they really appreciated. So that is now on our roadmap as we've gone back to a tray service, and had that diversity of menu of how can we better inform our flight attendants and our customers about what it is we're serving on board. So we're on that journey now for how we can start to incorporate that, make that more visible and available to you all and to our flight attendants so they can better inform you on that front. Where we've done a ton of work is on the nuts side of the house. So peanuts, most specifically, we were chatting earlier about, we had them on board, we took them off board, we put them back on. At this point, we do not have any peanuts that we're serving or anything, with peanut oil, to ensure the safest environment that we can for the most folks. We can't guarantee a peanut-free environment because people could bring their own food on board.
Yep.
So what we ask is that our customers, if they have a severe allergy, let us know. Let us know. You can go into My Trips on the delta.com app or website and let us know in My Trips that you've got that allergy. And then please let the gate agent know when you come, to the boarding area for your flight, because then they can advise the flight attendants of what's going on. Also, when you board the aircraft, let that flight attendant who's greeting you at the boarding door know that you have that allergy, because there are things we can do. The gate agent can let you board a little bit early if you want to clean the area around you in case someone prior to you had peanuts on board and something is there. We do a deep clean, and trust me, we got really good at cleaning through COVID. So we do that, but we want to give our customers that option to also clean that space for them if they would like to pre-board or get on a little bit earlier and make sure that space is clear. The flight attendants can take the step of making an announcement that we have somebody on board, and please ask the other passengers if they have brought something with them to be considerate of those on board. And we can create a safe space or area around that customer so that if there is something that we're offering as a snack, now we're getting into like if you have a tree nut allergy,
right?
So we do offer some tree nuts still as part of our snacks that we, can ensure that we don't offer that in that snack basket, et cetera, around that area. So a lot of work. Those are the two biggest and first areas that we've addressed at this point. We also do have special meals. If customers want to request those, gluten-free meals, again, vegetarian, vegan.
Oh, I can request that now.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I thought it was just the peanut allergy. Yeah. No, that's great.
For your special meals. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you are, so ahead of time, if you want to let us know that you prefer a gluten-free meal, we can, we can facilitate that. But yeah, but we're on that journey and making sure that we offer our flight attendants and our customers more information, because we learned that that's something they really are interested in having.
Right. Well, and it's not like they can go and call the chef, the flight attendant, or go into the kitchen. Right. So and I think we've all learned just in general society, the more information you give. I mean, those flight attendants are like event planners. Because they manage a lot. They're managing feeding people. They're managing, safety. They're managing a variety of different things. And so they have a lot on their plate. And I think, and that goes with, to me, and hotel servers and banquet captains and things like that, they need to know as much as they possibly can too, because they're the ones talking to your customers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So arm them. Don't be afraid to let them know. They're problem solvers by nature, and they'll be happy to support you as much as they can.
So how, let's talk beverages as well, because creative cocktails and I'm looking and premium wines and espressos, like reading what I wrote up there. So talk about what you're doing cocktail or beverage wise. And know your biggest provider is Coca-Cola, 2 Atlanta brands, which are strong partners. Love that. But what are you doing for the beverage side of the flight?
Yeah, this is a place, again, as we've kind of focused on diverse suppliers, smaller suppliers. This is where we've really found opportunity as on that front. So as, again, we kind of recovered and came out of our COVID period, there's quite a few beverage suppliers that we're really excited to be working with. One that many folks probably know about is Tip Top. So that's the espresso martini that we just announced. They have an old fashioned, they have a margarita, and we rotate some of those drinks out on board. I will tell you, if for those of you who enjoy a potent alcoholic beverage, Tip Top is for you. It's a great product, and we get really positive feedback on that. But again, espresso martinis was our most recent launch on that one. The other one is, like, for example, Du Nord Social Spirits vodka, small provider who's helping us with our vodka side of the house. We've got Une Femme, which is a sparkling wine product produced women-owned wineries. So we really are leaning in on looking for those unique beverage choices that maybe people aren't as familiar with, and maybe they can try something new or try something different while they're on board with us.
Okay, well, all right, I do have one recommendation. She's out of Chapel Hill. It's Conniption Gin, and she's the first woman to be installed in the U.S. Gin Guild. And so, yes, get her gin on there. I can introduce you to her.
Super.
So what about because besides being gluten-free person, I also don't drink alcohol and I don't drink soda. So I typically drink club soda with the lime when I have the opportunity. But are you also looking at the non-alcoholic market out there? I mean, 30% of people do not drink alcohol. And I don't drink coffee, so that espresso drink would not be my fan. But so how are you looking at those different products that you can bring in as well? Because there's lots of wine and, non-alcoholic wine and spirits.
Yeah. We've really, at this point, leaned in on things like teas. So like Thrive Farmers Hot Tea is another small provider. We're working with a really great business, Explorer Cold Brew. So sorry, not for you, relative.
It's okay. It's not all about me, Kristen.
Yeah. For the caffeine drinkers in the world, that's the teas and the coffees. We've really tried to find some options that are unique and premium. And again, really giving that opportunity to some of those more diverse suppliers that we wanted to be working with. When it comes to non-alcoholic beverages and associated with that, that's on our roadmap as well. That's still work that we're doing, identifying some of those key suppliers and where is that opportunity and what do customers really want the most in that space. So more to come on that front, because you're right. Our customer profile is changing a bit. They're asking for those types of options. And so that's on our roadmap too.
Yeah. And I know, because I took a tour of Conniption recently, and it's Durham Distillery is the full name of the company too, is that she's got canned ones as well.
Perfect.
Well, that's actually alcohol, but looking at the non-alcoholic versions, there's canned non-alcoholic, a lot of those out there too. And I've got a couple people I can introduce you to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Because it is one of my, Derek Brown was a guest in January, and he wrote something. It's like the autonomy, because you mentioned personalization and being able to as a person, make a choice on for being, have options all the time.
Yep.
So I want to go back to the Wall Street Journal article that Jen Gilhoy, who is with the, I mentioned you before we went live, and oh my gosh, Jen, now I just forgot what it is. But anyway, she's like, I love this question around the beverage offering. Sorry. Zero Proof Collective is the name of the company out of Minneapolis. And then her business partner, our mission is to get them everywhere, including 30,000 feet in the air. And actually, Lynn Wellish commented too that this is a fantastic content. She teaches hospitality and event planning. So it's really important because event planners buy tickets for a lot of their customers, their event attendees, right? So understanding what the options are, for them to purchase or make the choices for their customers is also a good thing too. But I want to go back to that Wall Street Journal article or video, I think I should say, because you're using a lot of technology, which I thought was really cool. Everybody watch that video. Robots are putting the things on the trays.
Yes.
And how has that streamlined that entire process for you?
Yeah, it's been tremendous. As we've had the opportunity to invest in our kitchens, especially some of our biggest hub kitchens like here in Atlanta, we've identified places in the process where it makes sense for us to use technology or robots to help with that, versus the places where we really need a human to do those quality checks and, making and loading onto the trucks and loading into the galleys and having that conversation with our flight attendants about Do you have everything you need? So how can we best use the human resources we've got, and how can we best use technology to do some of the more rote tasks that'll help us produce at the scale we need to, one, and produce it safely, because that is a big, food safety is a huge area of focus for us. Safety is number one in everything that we do in the airline industry, and that includes what we do on the food safety side.
Yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense to incorporate robots into putting the things on the trays, because it's a little mundane, and it gives your culinary team a lot more, hands-on in designing the culinary aspect of that. So, and also in that video, I thought it was interesting is about the safety of that, is that the people who are in those kitchens making the food, they wash their hands, they do their things, they suit up, and then they go through this machine that like blows air at them.
Yes, to make sure there's no contaminants, no hair, no anything as they're coming into that space. We are, like I said, passionate about food safety. We have third parties that audit us on a regular basis. We encourage our flight attendants to submit reports on anything related to food safety. We're just kind of fanatical about it. We can't afford to compromise on anything relative to safety. We want people to have the best customer experience they can, and it starts with making sure we're running a safe operation.
Okay, so let's jump to the sustainability side of this too. I think it was a flight attendant a couple of years ago said, yeah, the flight attendants are the ones that started actually using the bags to collect the plastic bottles, and they were doing that recycling effort on their own. They chose to do that. So besides the recycling of the plastic bottles, what sustainability practices do you have in place from the beginning? Sourcing locally is one. Yep. But, all the way through the exiting of the plane and recycling, after the flight.
Yeah, so you're right. Yeah, the local sourcing is a huge contributor to that. That's one. Two, I was talking about pre-select and allowing customers to choose what they want to be served on board. We've added an option in that pre-select to say, do you want to skip this meal? Okay. And so that really, back to the point of personalization, customers might say, hey, I'm just coming from a lunch, or, especially on an international flight, I'm going to eat before I get on, because when I get on, I just want to sleep until I, get to London or get to Paris or whatever the case may be. And so what that gives us is the information to not board as many meals on that particular flight. And again, that's what pre-select does for us too, is rather than guessing, we think this many people will eat the steak and this many will eat the chicken and this many will eat the pasta, we can have more precision about what we need to load on board. And our intent is to get even more precise as we go. The thing that drives, so we've made tremendous progress in terms of sustainability around things like single-use plastics. So at this point, we've reduced our consumption by about 4.9 million pounds per year. Wow. And that's with us focusing on things like the serviceware. So if you've been on board recently, you may have seen us using bamboo serviceware versus plastics there. Bagasse is a crockery solution. So what we serve our meals in, that's a highly compostable solution for us. And other materials that we know are easily recyclable is what we're leveraging. The next big frontiers for us are the plastic cups and the water bottles. So that is where we are squarely focused going forward. So as it relates to the plastic cups, we're actually testing some initiatives right now, testing some products right now to see. It's a trick because it has to be a cup that can support hot beverages, cold beverages, alcoholic beverages, and everything in between. We don't want, anything to disintegrate on you, and we want you to have the best experience. So we're doing a lot of active testing, but really trying to find that solution for those plastic cups. In the meantime, and for the water bottles as well, and exploring a lot of different solutions on the water bottle front. In the meantime, we are, again, through COVID, a lot of our recycling programs really had to be, put to bed for a period of time. So we're waking a lot of that back up in terms of getting this recycling done on board, making sure that when it's in the kitchens, that we're separating it and ensuring that we're recycling in those kitchens as best we can. And then we're partnering with the airports because they handle a portion of the recycling as well, to make sure that they're standing their recycling programs back up, and that we can not contribute and move forward with our sustainability efforts in partnership with them.
Well, and that's got to be very hard to, with all of the various places that you travel, right? And even within the United States, I mean, recycling is different levels in every different city, right? What the cities do. And then when you're going to some remote place in Asia or in, Africa, or however they recycle or do, I mean, that's got to be a challenge. Do you bring that stuff back with you, or is it?
Sometimes it depends. Yeah. It's hard in a market like a larger market like that when we're going to Asia, because we need the space to to load everything back up for the next flight out. But there are some times where we do need to round trip things, so we make sure that it's disposed of properly and meets the needs relative to that. You were asking about technology earlier. We've just started using some technology to help us understand consumption. So as things are kind of coming off that aircraft, we've got this kind of computer visioning tool that we're using to measure consumption so that we can start to reduce food waste on board and see if we can't, that reduces, we were talking earlier about weight on the planes. So again, the less we're loading, the less waste we have, the lighter we fly, the less fuel we got to burn for that, is all important. But yeah, those aluminums, we're recycling plastic, we're recycling cardboard, and food are the big areas in our kitchens.
Well, and I love the fact that you're monitoring the consumption, right? Because I tell that to meeting planners as well. I'm like, why are you continuing to order croissants or bagels when your attendees don't eat them, right? So buy them something different, or even all those muffins and those carbs in the morning. If they're not eating them, then why are you spending your money on them?
That's right.
And two, wasting that food. So I love the fact that you're paying attention to what's not being consumed on the flights. Kate with the Zero Proof Collective has another question. For non-alcoholic beer, wine, and other, if you're going to add those to your menus, do they all need to be in individual bottles or cans, or is it better to have them? How do you decide on whether big bottles or the little cans?
Cans are typically leveraging right now for a lot of our beverage offerings. Again, through COVID, we used for juices, for example, a Tetra Pak, so a little bit larger. I'll tell you, it does not work well. It leaks. It causes a lot, it's hard for the flight attendants. It's hard for the kitchens to take that back. It results in a lot of waste. So cans are preferable at this point. I will tell you, we're looking at technologies to say, how do we even get out of the can business, and start looking at things that are similar to like a soda cart, or soda fountain type usage. So,
wow, that would be amazing.
Out of on the sustainability front, is there some way, talking about, I was talking about water bottles earlier. Do customers start bringing their own on board, and we just provide, the bevy machine or the, the place for them to get that fresh water, or other selection of beverages on board. So quite a few things that we're looking at, but in the near term, individual cans or smaller cans is what we would be looking for.
Okay, I can't wait to see. I have a picture of my grandparents on a flight coming to see me when I was a baby in Hawaii, and so I was like 2. So this is 1970, and they're it's a picture of them smoking for one, and 2 getting their beverages. But I'm like, now to see a beverage cart coming down, hey, let's tap that beer, or do you want something from a keg instead of that can? Oh my gosh, full circle, right? You never know. That's so fun. So what does, there's a lot that you go into with planning food and beverage, 60 million meals a year, and actually, I'm thinking of going to the Far East location, right? Or, to India and coming back. When you're coming back from India, are those flights, are those food choices really Indian based, or are they US based with some Indian flair?
No, you're right. We do try to do something that reflects the place you just came from.
Okay.
So if you're coming out of Paris, if you're coming out of, so for example, on London, we just introduced a tea service,
Okay.
mid-flight, just, with a little tea, little biscuits, something to give a nod to the place that you just came from. When we're coming out of Korea or out of Japan, we have a broad offering of Korean meals, Japanese meals, to acknowledge, one, the passenger mix we have on board, who may very well
Mm-hmm.
desire and want that type of product and menu. Also, it's going to be incredibly fresh and easy to source, and locally sourced, because if you're a Japanese kitchen or a Korean kitchen, you're used to making those types of meals, and they're going to be high quality and fresh, and premium for us. So yeah, we do try to mix it up a little bit and give a nod to the place they just came from.
Well, and that's another. Say that again.
Or going to where they're coming
Right.
from, or
Yeah.
going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and there's a planner that commented the other day in a group. She's like, "Hey, I've got a large contingency coming from Asia for this meeting here in the States. What should I be serving for breakfast?" Right. And really thinking about what's on that. When you go to a restaurant or hotel in Japan, what do they have on their menus? Right. They've got a full gamut of American, Asian, to meet those different things. So I like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or like Tel Aviv, we just started Atlanta Tel Aviv service. We have a significant number of kosher meals that we
Okay.
are sure that we board, for that particular market set. So we try to be very specific and culturally sensitive to each of the individual markets that we're flying to.
Well, that reminds me of a guy who I sat next to, from Italy back to Atlanta years ago, and he always orders the kosher meal because he says it's going to be fresher. He's not kosher. He's not Jewish. He just chose to do that, and he's like, and I always get it first before everybody else. But I was looking at it. I'm like, oh, I can't eat that because it's got my allergens in it. But which is fine. But I thought that was interesting as well. So, do you have a lot of kosher requests on the planes?
We do,
Yeah.
but again, and there's specific markets where we see an even increased number. Of course, Tel Aviv. There's some other key markets, but kosher meals, halal meals,
Okay.
all of that is available. We try to take into consideration allergens, religious beliefs, and food sensitivities, and everything in between, and preferences.
Yeah. Okay. So, question that I ask everybody: what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience at 30,000 feet mean to you?
All right, so I'll take each one of those. So safe means that we are running from farm to 30,000 feet, that there is safety infused in every step of the process, so that we are ensuring the highest quality, safest meal for our flight attendants to deliver, an environment for them to deliver it in, and for our customers to be consuming. Again, we're passionate about that, and I look at a food safety report every week on how we're doing relative to that. Sustainable, we have to do our part. We're on that journey. We've made some great reductions in the waste that we're producing on board, and we've got more to go with those single-use plastics, and those water bottles are next up on our list and reducing food waste where we can. And like you said earlier, the local suppliers. So everything in that whole food chain, how do we ensure that sustainability is also at the forefront of our decision making, so that we can deliver against that? Inclusivity, incredibly important. And so that's where you see us, again, delivering these special meals or having these offerings available. But really, a big part of our focus is on personalization. So how do we give you the choice that you either want to have a meal or don't. And if you do want to have a meal with us, give you a broad choice prior to you getting on the aircraft to say, what is it that you would like today? And we're going to get, it's available for premium customers now. Our intent is to continue to roll that out more broadly. So it's for the whole aircraft, so that when you're on a service, say for international, where you get a first meal and a second service before you land, you can tell us you don't want that to be woken up for that second meal for breakfast because you want to get that extra hour of sleep before you land in Paris or, Amsterdam, or that here's your choice for what you would like to have, again, so we don't board something that you're not going to consume. So a lot of accomplished, but I think a lot more to go in the journey.
They brought up a couple of different questions because I just think it's intriguing, but I'm going to bring up one from Kate here. She asked, does the percentage of people, based on what you're doing, the research that you're doing now, does it fluctuate by where the destination is or you're leaving, or is it consistent? That's a really good question, Kate.
Yeah, it's a great question. So so what we see, for example, is let's take our Latin America flights. So down to Brazil or to Santiago, for example, those flights typically leave at night and come back at night. So they're true red eyes where you're really sleeping on the plane both ways. For those types of flights, we see very consistent consumer behavior and wants relative to, don't feed me. I'm going to eat before I get on because I want to sleep on board. There's no time change that we're contending with. The time zones are relatively the same. And so that has a very different customer profile and need versus when you go to, say, like a, JFK to London type of flight. Depending on when in the day people are departing, that is also very consistent. So if they're leaving a little bit earlier, they want to have the full meal service, and then they do not want to be woken up because they, at the end of their flight, because it's very early in the morning to their body clock, if they're a U.S. citizen going to London, but somebody who's from London may very well say that they want to be woken up for that meal service. But traditionally what we find is there's each flight, based on the timing and how long it is, as most especially for international, has a lot of consistency in it. The routes themselves, whether you're going to Rio versus London Heathrow, that's going to have a very different profile.
That's so interesting. All the data that you have to analyze is just, my nephew needs to come work for you. That's what he's studying, or that's what he does. But I mean, that's just amazing. And looking at that data and understanding it helps you be a better business.
That's right. That's right. Better serve our customers, and back to it, better, ultimately more sustainable. Because again, in a world where we didn't have that data or information, we just board, we're like, we'll do about 40% steak, 40% chicken,
And the flight attendant tells you, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of the chicken.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just, we have the opportunity to be smarter and more efficient and more effective for everybody going forward.
Awesome. All right, I have two final questions. One is about staffing.
Sure.
The food service industry has been hit hard, and we've determined that you are in the food service industry, not just flight attendants, but your back of the house, your kitchen staff. Have you been hit hard by the same thing that the restaurants have been hit hard with?
Absolutely. So in our catering kitchens, that's where we struggled the most, to support staffing. We saw really high turnover, really struggled with retention as we came through kind of COVID recovery. I would say now we're seeing it stabilize quite a bit. And that's for a few different reasons. I think our growth has stabilized a bit. We're still growing, but not nearly at the recovery pace that we had to in 21, as customers were really coming back. And I think also as we've gotten back into normal processes, and we've got, really, because it's also a manufacturing mindset, right, in our kitchens. We're lean process, how do we flow the kitchen to make it make sense? as we've really honed those processes, and so people understand what it is they're coming in to do every day and how that process should work, we've seen satisfaction with the role go up, and retention rates remain high versus where we were seeing a lot of turnover previously. So certainly a struggle for the last couple of years, but we're really seeing that moderate this year.
Good. That's awesome. And then I'm just curious, this popped up when you were talking about the safety aspect and coordinating, again, going back to that Wall Street video, is like, how do you separate the meals that have the allergens and don't have the allergens, or are they in separate carts? Do you have different kinds of labels on them?
We have different kinds of labels on them. So they're typically in the same carts, unless there's some really, unique.
And they're all aluminum foiled and all that. Yeah,
exactly. So it's very clear and very much called out for the flight attendants where those special meals are residing, where they are on their manifest, in their paperwork, so that they know. That there's no cross contamination that's happening in any step in the process through the kitchen, onto the truck, and getting into that galley for that flight attendant.
And this just reminded me of a story. I was going to the Food Allergy Research Education Conference in Orlando last fall, and the flight attendant made an announcement saying, "Hey, we've got somebody on the plane with a peanut allergy, and if you would please refrain from eating peanuts." And I'm like, and I actually did a live video saying, "Oh my God, I'm so excited they just did that." And he came and talked to me, and then he was talking to her, and he knew where his seat was and all of that. But he told her about me, and we were going, and he goes, "I think you guys," he told her, "You're going to the same conference," because I told him why I was going to Orlando. So she and I met at the conference because he said her name, he gave her my name, which is great, because I didn't want her to, I don't want to divulge, him to divulge anything, but he gave her my name. And so she overheard me talking to somebody. She's like, "Are you Tracy that was on the Delta plane?"
That's awesome.
And I'm like, "Yes." And so I loved that. And it was a really great experience on how it was handled. And so I really appreciate that. And one final question that I did, so I'm lying, but what do you want to, what's the one final thing that you want customers to know about catering 60,000 meals at 35,000 feet?
Yeah. So it's not easy, but we work, and somebody said the other day, I thought they said it really, really well. We're a restaurant in the air that people they didn't choose to come to Delta necessarily because of our food and beverage offering, but they came to us, for the premium experience, the customer experience, and the destination that we're working to get them to. But we take the job seriously in terms of delivering a moment that delights as you receive that meal, that beverage, giving you the opportunity to try something maybe that you hadn't had the chance to try before, and do it in a way that is all the things I love that, the safe, the sustainable, and inclusive, that those are absolutely our goals and values that we're trying to deliver against.
Awesome. And how many people do you have in the kitchens doing that?
Oh, gosh, I should know that number off the top of my head. I do not. With 130 kitchens,
yeah,
it's thousands.
Yeah, it's thousands for sure. Well, Kristen,
some of them are Delta employees and some are contractors.
Okay, that's true. Yep, because you work with a lot of catering partners. So, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I really appreciate you taking the steps to create more safe, sustainable, and inclusive options in the food and the beverage that's on board. You will continue to be my favorite airline, but I haven't flown anything anybody else in 25 years, so I really don't have anybody to compare it to, but I will stick with it.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity. I learned some things too, and great to hear y'all's feedback and questions. And so I appreciate the time. Thank you.
And what's the best way to get in touch with, is it through the ordering the plane on the plane, or asking about preferences when they're flying with Delta?
So if they want to take advantage of pre-select, as long as you are signed up for the SkyMiles program and we know your email address, we will get an email to you prior to your flight to ask you what you would like. So please sign up for SkyMiles and give us your email address, and we'll make sure to get that to you. And then if you do have food sensitivities or allergens, just don't be afraid to let us know. Put something in your profile. If you're talking to a reservation specialist, let them know. If you're talking with your gate agent, let them know, or let that flight leader, when you board that aircraft or that purser, know what's going on so that we can best support you.
And I love the pursers that I've had. And just on that note of the SkyMiles, if you are SkyMiles, you can actually get free Wi-Fi on the planes as well.
Yes, you can.
Yes. So actually don't sign up so that I get all the bandwidth. No, I'm kidding. No, but I like that when I'm booking a flight the other day, it said this is one, and I know you're rolling it out to all of the flights, but all the planes, but yeah, you can pick that right now too. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah.
You're welcome. All right. Well, everyone, stay safe and eat well. I will be back next week. I'm talking to Courtney and Lauren about sustainable food and beverage, following up from their site global conference presentation. And then May kicks off Food Allergy Awareness Month, and Celiac Disease Awareness Month. So we'll be doing a lot on those there. So until next time, stay safe and eat well. Thank you.